I saw a right-hand drive Jeep that had its roof down. The guy was in a Carhartt because it's fucking freezing outside, smoking a cigar, driving over here. It was insane. Why are you do? Why do you have a right-hand drive Jeep in the United States? And also, why was the top down?
Do you think he doesn't have a top?
No, like there was like a little bit of top rolled up in the back. You could obviously see it, but he was just like driving along, puffing on a cigar, and it was like it is like nearly below freezing outside.
Is that just like a rule of cool thing where it's like, yeah, that's right. I'm here. It's cold. I don't care. I got a cigar. You don't. I'm cooler than you are.
I imported a Jeep, even though Jeeps are made in the United States and it's an American car. No, I got a right-hand
I
drive
went
Jeep.
out of my way to get the most expensive Jeep I could. Oh my God.
Anyway,
Some people, man.
welcome to KleioTalk. You haven't heard our voices in a while, and we would like to sincerely apologize to you. We originally were going to take a short break so we could attend a wedding, and then that break turned into a couple months.
Well, originally we weren't going to take a break at all. We were going to record a bunch of episodes to make it through the wedding break. I don't remember if we said anything like that at the time, but then life happens and we got really busy and we never recorded the episodes. And then we got really busy again. I moved and things just happened. And now, next thing you know, it's 2023.
Yeah. So sorry if you listened in September of 2022 and we're waiting for an episode to come out. One's coming out
August. The last one's August.
Last one's August.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys.
Wow, it is August.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we have some interesting topics to talk to you guys about and to talk about in general. How do you feel about that governor of Missouri raising the budget for highway expansions in Kansas City?
What did he say? He said it's not the easy thing to do, but it's the necessary thing to do. You know, we don't have any options. And it's like, my guy. Yes, you do.
There's a train that runs from like St. Louis to Kansas City. Why don't you do more of that?
It's like it used to run 2 times a day. Now it runs 1 time a day because you guys cut it. Yeah, here's the quote. To those who say we can't afford it, it being adding another lane to I-70, I say we can't afford not to.
Were they actually trying to get it to 6 lanes in Kansas City?
I guess. I mean, there's no link. It's just a picture of Missouri with the highways. There's no actual information because it's like he's doing all of his like budgetary proposals and stuff for the new year. But it's like...
The drive to St. Louis does have traffic, but also like adding another lane doesn't really improve anything.
Well, he talks about like these inefficiencies are costly to our state's economy. And it's like, I took the Missouri River Runner recently, and you know what's really inefficient about it is constantly waiting for the freight trains to go through. Because we parked, it's about a 5-hour trip. Driving is about 3 hours. You're going like 85 miles an hour for half of it. But then you park for 40 minutes and wait for a freight train to go through at like 20 miles an hour. And it's like, that's an inefficiency right there.
If you could go at or above highway speeds, you could beat the highway.
Yeah, you stop in like towns, but if you didn't have to also stop for trains, you know, like double side the tracks or whatever, it'd be way better. Because trust me, that drive isn't that bad on a train. On like driving it, it sucks. But I was like, you know, playing on my phone, reading a book, doing that kind of stuff, and it wasn't too bad.
I'm just confused on the state's economy. Is it like, what does he mean by the state's people traveling back and forth between St. Louis and Kansas City? I know it's a big highway route, but also I've been on quite a lot of cross-country trip before, and there's a bunch of highways that are just 4 lanes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that highway like stretch sucks way more than it has to, but you're also driving through Missouri for all of it, so
yeah.
It kind of explains a lot. But like, I guess the idea is just people need to get between KC and STL faster.
Why don't you run an express Missouri River Runner?
Yeah, because I guess that's the point. Is it's like, look, if we could just reduce all, like most or all of those little like Kansas City to St. Louis trips and just have it be people driving across the country, that would reduce the traffic by a lot.
Yeah.
Like my boss had to go to St. Louis a couple of weeks ago for a business trip, and I don't think he ever considered taking the train because, you know, it runs like once a day
Yeah.
each way. But if it was running more frequently and faster, you know, you kind of think, wait a second, I could actually be working on the train on the way there instead of, you know, driving.
You know, I might have talked about it on here, but I'm going to talk about it again. I once took a flight from Kansas City to St. Louis
Why?
because it was some sort of routing thing. I had to get to New York for some sort of reason, and I ended up taking a flight from Kansas City to St. Louis.
Oh, so it was a layover.
Yeah, and then I had to spend like 8 hours in the St. Louis airport, and then I got a flight to New York, which was completely. And they didn't even serve drinks on it, and that was probably one of the shortest flights up until like just recently.
I mean, it has to be like less than an hour, right? Like
No,
security
it was like-
probably took longer.
Yeah, it was entering through KCI, so security was a joke. But yeah, it was like 30 minutes. They didn't even serve drinks.
Yeah, I get that. I think we did I think it was Atlanta to, not Miami, probably Fort Lauderdale or something. And I think that was one of those where you just flew like over the Gulf for some reason. And no, it was to Fort Myers.
Yeah.
You just fly over the Gulf. It was like, yeah, we're not even we barely are going to tell you to strap in because we're basically going to be landed by the time you guys do anything.
Yeah.
So I think it was similar to that. But even that was like an hour.
Yeah, and that flight I did from Salt Lake City back in September, that one would probably beat it out because that took like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But still, like, why would I even fly? Well, granted, the reason I flew from St. Louis or from Kansas City to St. Louis because I was a child and someone else bought the tickets for me. But
Yeah.
that is a core memory of the most ridiculous flight I've ever done in my entire life. It was, and then spent 8 hours in their airport.
8 hours in the airport.
But speaking of airports, big infrastructure news for Kansas City is the new Kansas City airport is going to open up soon.
Yeah, they're almost done with it.
And we have tickets to go see it.
Yeah, that's right. We got the VIP exclusive first look package. So we're going to be able to give you guys some not live but reporting from how it looks.
Yeah, from a Midwest regional airport.
Yeah, which I think the idea is for it to supplant like Chicago or something, which is never going to happen.
No.
It's never going to happen.
No.
But hey, Quentin Lucas, dream big, buddy. You got it.
I mean, considering that if you look at or have ever been to like Kansas City's airport before this new one, it's not the busiest. Actually, it's not busy at all, but it is atrocious. And all I hear whenever people talk about bad airports, they talk about like, you know, Atlanta or like DFW or like LaGuardia, when all of those are absolute massive traffic hubs.
Yeah.
And most of your bad stories are because you had a layover that was like an hour long. You had to run across the airport.
You know, they call it Kansas City International. Does it actually host any international?
Yeah, there's
flights?
Southwest flights that go to Mexico and like Costa Rica and shit.
Okay. So I was gonna say because it's barely. I mean, even just going to Chicago. No, not Chicago. Minneapolis. We had to. They routed us to Dallas and then to Minneapolis because you can't just go straight to Minneapolis. I mean, it's a regional airport. I don't know why.
Yeah.
KCI rolls off the tongue better. So, but
the actual airport code is MCI, but
Yeah.
I am going to probably miss the security lines at KCI because that was one of the airports where you could actually like show up basically 30 minutes before your flight was leaving and make it through security. It was a joke. They just kind of like did like the kind of like hover hands around you and you just walk through.
They just did not have the space to implement all the crazy TSA stuff that like DC has.
Yeah.
Like, I think they have the full body scanners, but they have like one per row. And luckily they don't get enough like traffic to make that a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's I think the TWA built it in the 70s before they went bankrupt and were bought out. And it was probably really great 40 years ago.
Yeah, when you could just like whip your car through the big circle and then pop out and then get on your flight with like your cigarette and your booze.
Oh yeah.
But that's making a return argument. We have a brand new airport that does not have a rail link that you still have to drive and park at.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on the World Cup before in one of our mini complaining about Kansas City episodes, but yeah, that's going to be fun. Brand new airport,
Yeah.
no like passenger link to the actual city, so you have to drive or take. I don't even think there's a bus line. I think you just have to take the charter buses.
There is a bus line. It is extremely inconsistent,
So
and
it's a Kansas City bus line.
yeah, and runs supposed to run hourly, but doesn't run hourly. But some people might argue that Washington D.C. is the first city to implement fare free buses,
Oh yeah.
but Kansas City was the first because we got a bunch of federal grant money. And
Yeah, we've had fareless not just buses, but the streetcar's been fareless since 2018, I think.
yeah.
So, suck on that. We're the first major city to have fareless buses.
Well, I mean, unless you don't count Kansas City as a major city.
I do. I do because
Yeah.
I'm from here. God, we are just a regional podcast now.
Yeah, we're a regional podcast.
Oh, well.
And another airport thing is I'm not sure if we're ever going to hear about when Brian Platt, the city manager for Kansas City, proposed building the largest solar farm in the Midwest in all the empty land around KCI, because they own a bunch of land that they just don't use.
See, that's good, but KCI isn't by anything, at all.
Yeah, well, the point, that's the reason, is it has KCI has a bunch of land that it owns that they aren't using, and you really can't you can't build neighborhoods up until the edge of an airport. People aren't buy those houses. So the proposal was to build an absolutely massive solar farm basically around the runways.
I'll reword me saying that. That's good because it's not by anything. Yeah. I was gonna make the whole you don't there's nothing there to power, but then I was thinking about it and it's that's stupid. Actually, you can just transmit the power somewhere else. So yeah, that'd be a good use of land.
Unless they're still gunning for the taking over the regional hub from Chicago or Dallas or something like that.
I think we'll have to see what happens when they demolish the old terminal and they suddenly have a bunch of real estate next to the runway where they can try to maybe build a brand new terminal on top of the old one as well.
Yeah.
Kind of expand or whatever.
Because, I mean, you can't take down DFW or O'Hare, but you might be able to take Midway or Love Field if you want to go full Southwest.
Yeah. I don't know if there even is a Southwest in 3 years.
Yeah, Southwest isn't doing...
Canceling 60% of the flights in a week doesn't, affect the bottom line.
I know some of the Southwest credit card with a bunch of points on it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, and they're extremely stressed.
Yeah, as a frequent Southwest flyer myself, frequent being once every 4 years, they're usually pretty good, but I think that they're cheap for a reason.
Well, I mean, it's better than Spirit.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. I wouldn't take Spirit if you paid me. I would take Spirit if you paid me. I like flying, but I think planes are cool, but it's not that good.
Yeah, and I mean, if the choice was Spirit or a canceled Southwest flight or a train, I'd prefer a train. But
yeah, see, but that's the issue with living out here is, all those giant maps, and I understand the reasons for why you don't get high-speed rail or any of that kind of improvements, but it does just kind of suck seeing all those maps, and it's wow, the Northeast getting $7,000 billion trillion dollars invested, and the Midwest maybe we'll link you to Wichita, but only if you're good. Maybe.
It really upsets me when I see one of those, even from some random person just drawing up a high-speed rail map and posting it on Twitter. If it, it excludes Kansas City from any route thing, or Kansas City is just a spur line, it makes me mad.
Well, and here's the question I have for those high-speed rail people. Chicago to St. Louis to Kansas City to Denver, right there. It's multiple straight lines. My computer just fell asleep in the middle. Okay, I think we're still recording.
Hell yeah.
It's a straight line south and then a straight line east. You can't take a train. You have to go all the way up to Chicago and then all the way around to Denver. It's the most logical expansion route, but none of these maps ever include it. It's perfectly flat in a straight line, and you'd replace I-70 going out there. I never understand why we don't have a train going out there.
Or the more annoying thing is when there is one, but it's going to Omaha.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, let's go north. And then I guess it's utilizing the route that already exists, but still, it's stupid to have to go north. And where it's like,
but also like,
just go west.
And from the already existing problems Amtrak has, using rail that's already existing, that's used by freight, isn't going to work. If you make a high-speed electrified rail system on the rail that's owned by BNSF or Union Pacific or anything like that, it's gonna get worse. You're gonna have more issues. You're gonna have more PR issues that's outside of your control. So maybe the solution is laying new rail.
Plus, we got all these terrific, gigantic wind farms out west in western Kansas, and then that could be a good utilization of that electricity. You know, powering the communities around, and then also powering some rail lines. You know, hey, this line right here, it's perfectly green, powered by wind. You know, that'd be cool marketing.
Yeah,
they'd never do it though.
There was a discussion that I have been seeing for Kansas City as well, which is, are you pro or anti-bike lane?
Oh, God. I think this is more of a discussion by like three not even small businesses. It's like a restaurant lady and
an auto
repair shop. And literally everybody else is like, yeah, just add a bike lane.
Yeah.
But it's like these three, like, I don't want to say wackadoos, but I just said it.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, it's killing businesses, and it's have you seen that lady's restaurant on Google Maps?
Yes, I've seen her in the restaurant.
It is a gigantic parking lot, and then she's complaining about them removing the street parking. Out, her business is completely surrounded on all sides, except for the side the road is on, by like a gravel parking lot.
Yeah. And beyond that is a field.
And it's like, why is the street parking your biggest problem? Why are you worried about this? Like, you can only fit like 2 cars out front before you block the entrance to the freaking parking lot. It doesn't make any sense. But she's going to the city hall, whatever meetings, and complaining about like, oh, you know, I think her argument was, because I was reading some about this, it looks better when there's cars out front because it makes it look busier. There's 2 or 3 cars parked on the street out front, and it drives business.
Also, I mean,
but if there was a bike lane and people were able to bike to my restaurant, that would kill business.
Or how about you like maybe invest in more signs? Because also looking at our restaurant on Google Maps, it is literally like one of those old Pepsi or Coca-Cola signs. And other than that, you can't really tell it's a restaurant that's open.
Well, it's stupid. And then haven't even touched on the guy yet with his auto repair store.
Oh, yeah, the auto repair guy who doesn't actually have space to repair cars in his own building.
You own an auto repair store and you don't have a parking lot. You rely entirely on the street parking, like parking in the street, your cars that you are actively working on. And then you get mad when the city's like, hey, that's our property. We're going to make some infrastructure improvements to it.
Well, also, I thought this bike lane was voted on, right?
Yes.
Why didn't you, like, vocalize this issue when they were proposing this as an election thing?
Because I don't think he was paying attention until they started installing the bike lane out front of his business, and he realized, oh God, I can't park there anymore. There's a bike lane. Because now he just parks. It's a 2-lane road, and then there's a bike lane.
Yeah, he parked his car and built a barrier, and then he is having his own rallies and parks.
Yeah, but he's been parking the cars out in that lane. Like, he single-handedly is shutting down a lane of traffic on his own. I don't know how this guy hasn't been ticketed like heavily yet. Like, how is the city allowing this to work?
I'm just so confused about, like, maybe you should be slightly more engaged, and also, like, yeah, it sucks. Like, it sucks that people I don't like or things that I don't like get elected, but I'm not going to attempt to destroy an entire infrastructure project because I don't like it. I will not go and pour concrete into the new I-70 construction if it happens, because yeah, it sucks, but also, what can I really do?
I just can't get over the 859 million to widen and rebuild I-70, and it's like, I think the entire Kansas City streetcar construction to this point was something like 200 million, I think.
Yeah. So,
And it's like, man, you could get like probably maybe the subway would be too expensive, but you could at least get the east-west link. You could get, because Kansas City, the half that's getting all the cool stuff is in Missouri. You could make some major infrastructural improvements to Kansas City proper, maybe do some stuff to St. Louis as well. But instead, it's like, yeah, let's just.
so the issue is obviously state money needs to go to be spread across the state of Missouri.
Right.
You can't focus on one city or another. But also, with a good chunk of this money, you could extend one city streetcar line up to their airport.
Mm-hmm.
And then your two biggest cities now have streetcar or metro lines connecting their airport to their downtown.
Now,
because St. Louis already has a connection from their airport to their downtown.
Now, you say that, and it's a good point, where it's like, yeah, state funds should be used for state improvements. But then my question is why can't Kansas City control its own? Why is the state in control of Kansas City's police budget then? Like, and this isn't, an indictment on you. It's just like this same state government that's like, wow, we got to do this. It's like, well, how come you've seized control of, like, forced Kansas City at gunpoint to maintain a certain level of funding for its police?
Oh, yeah. And then also put it up to an entire statewide vote to raise their budget.
Yeah,
and then
a binding statewide vote, and it's like, hey, maybe we should be the ones in charge of our own budget instead of, people down in like Jeff City.
Yeah,
like who cares?
Or any person outside of Kansas City in rural Missouri or even St. Louis who reads like, I want police funding, and votes for it.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking
talk about small government, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, yeah, here, your community can no longer decide what's best for your community.
Kansas City has a residency requirement. Most major American cities have residency requirements for workers to live within their established city area if you're going to work for it. You want to know what Kansas City organization does not have residency requirement?
I'm guessing based on what we were talking about, the police?
Yes.
Oh,
wow. The fire department does. City employees have to. Waste management has to. Literally every single Kansas City employee, other than Kansas City police, has to live.
So you're saying that the people in charge of law enforcement don't necessarily have to have any specific ties to the community they're in charge of policing, so they don't necessarily care at all or have any real connection or input or say?
Yeah. They could live in the suburbs and drive in every single day and police in Kansas City. And it's not like Kansas City is a small area with extremely high cost of living. Mm-hmm. Kansas City, on a regional area, although cost of living seems to be increasing drastically, has a low cost of living in comparison to the salary that a KCPD officer would receive. Also, Kansas City is about the same size square mileage wise as all 5 boroughs of New York City, with only 500,000 people as a population. So there's plenty of space within city limits.
Yeah. It's just like no one, or maybe this is intentional, but it's just like recognizing that, hey, if you don't have any specific connection to the city that you're in charge of policing, you don't necessarily care if it's done well. Like if there's a murder, if there's like something like that, you're less likely to care because it's like, well, it doesn't affect me that much. My suburb is not going to be it's just the city. So
please never look up Kansas City crime statistics.
Oh, no. That's because it's...
That's because there's not enough funding.
That's because it's a big city, and those are all inherently dangerous.
Yeah.
It can't possibly be because, the police don't actually care that much, and now the city can't even do anything to affect them.
Yeah.
It's the state.
And the city is now forced to fund a budget that they could fund to improve areas that have been systemically, disenfranchised. Because, Kansas City is a city that had one red line drawn straight down the middle of it.
Yeah.
And instead of attempting to improve the east side of Kansas City, you are not really doing that, you're being forced to do a budget for the police instead.
Well, and it's just like, say there's some form of budgetary shortfall, right? Like, say, I don't know, another like stock market crisis or whatever, and all of a sudden there's not as much tax revenue as there was before.
Yeah.
Well, now Kansas City is in the position where they cannot reduce spending. So they have to reduce everything else before the police, because they have to wait for the actual, like the government in Jeff City to pass a bill and law, funding bill,
Which they
reducing the police budget.
They wouldn't do that.
But then they're like, yeah, then they would have to be like, well, they're defunding the police. When it's like, okay, if anything happens, Kansas City no longer has the maneuverability to reduce the amount of money they're spending on police. So everything else can lower but that. So that's how you get the streetcar dying, because, well, shoot, we can't afford to fund it and the police. It's just such a stupid situation.
And I would be extremely upset if the efforts we've made to increase our public transit ability and build the streetcar turns out to be an antiquated thing that falls apart because there isn't enough money and the streetcar has to, be turned off forever, which sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
But shifting gears entirely, how do you feel about AI?
Well, I don't really like it. I mean, I like the concept of not having to do work, but that's never what it entails.
Yeah. Did you know you can talk to AI Osama bin Laden?
What? Why would you want to do that?
Oh, you can talk to AI Osama bin Laden.
Okay.
It's possible to talk to AI Osama bin Laden and a bunch of other historical figures through a new AI project based on, being able to talk to historical figures. Now, we're stealing this from Twitter, in which there's a person who had a conversation with AI Osama bin Laden, in which it goes, Osama bin Laden, hello, I am an AI simulation of Osama bin Laden. I may not be historically accurate. Please verify factual information. Person talking to AI Osama bin Laden, do you regret 9/11? AI Osama bin Laden, no, I still believe that the attack on September 11th was justified and necessary to protect Muslims from U.S. aggression in the Middle East. My goal was to make America realize its mistakes and stop their foreign policy of interfering with Muslim countries, which has only caused more suffering for innocent people throughout the region.
So, okay. I have to say that that's probably close to like what he would say, but who thinks this is a good idea? I mean, like, why do you need to talk to AI? Is this just supposed to be like a replacement for actually like reading even like Wikipedia pages? Is you can just be like, Osama bin Laden, what do you think about like tax policy? Like who needs this?
Yeah.
What is this? Who is this for?
Well, some people think it should go into classrooms. Some
God.
people, as of dumb people I saw on Twitter. So I'll think that this belongs in classrooms so people can interact. Imagine a student being able to interact with George Washington and ask him questions. A real AI-generated George Washington.
George Washington, what's your favorite Taco Bell order?
But see, the issue with this current iteration of AI set up for this stuff is there's paywalls. You have to pay money to talk to Hitler.
They put Hitler behind a paywall.
Hitler's behind a paywall.
He's pay to play.
Yeah, Hitler and Joan of Arc are pay to play.
And Joan of Arc?
Joan of Arc's pay to pay as well.
Oh, my God.
But I also saw someone talking to Dr. Mengele, which is also concerning.
Oh, God.
But that's not the thing that scares me. What scares me is people saying that this belongs in classrooms, and especially in like an American classroom for a project. And as two people who went through the American education system, there is a lot of people who believe exactly what they were taught, when we both know that most of the stuff that you're taught from a very early age through, secondary education is mostly wrong.
Yeah. There's an issue I've been kind of grappling with for a while, which is, as history progresses, it gets harder and harder every single year to fit everything in, right?
Yeah.
Because you start like in history in like middle school, elementary school, they want to start you from the beginning of U.S. history.
Yeah.
But like I don't know about you, in like my middle school classes, we made it to, I think, the Holocaust, and then we just didn't have any time, so we just didn't touch on Korea or Vietnam.
Yeah.
So I don't know how far you made it, but that's what scares me about stuff like this, where it's like, oh, this can expedite it, right?
Yeah.
We can get it faster. But it's like, the faster you go, the worse it is, right?
Yeah.
There's no good way to reduce the time it takes to teach these things without also severely reducing the depth.
And you also got to address a lot of people, especially me, experienced the history teacher you have in your class is the football coach.
Oh, God.
It's not, someone who actually is really there to teach history. They're there to be a football coach, or they're there to be something else. This is the filler class. So they have a job.
See, I don't know what it's like now with, I guess we were kind of very early on in like the implementation of technology in classrooms.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's like now, because like in my elementary school, we still had like overhead projectors and all that. We're kind of in the awkward middle period.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine it's getting better, especially with all this like chatbot stuff where like they can write articles for you and stuff. It just seems like it's so much easier to not learn anything now.
Yeah. And I'm sure people had these conversations about letting laptops in schools or whatever. But the thing that scares me is I can imagine myself back when I was in school with this technology getting an assignment. Well, you're going to talk to the AI person that you've been assigned to and then write a little paper about it. And the thing that concerns me is we have some screenshots of someone talking to Henry Ford, which, think about this idea of that project. If you attend an American school, you've probably had some of these projects where you're supposed to do a research project, but you're talking to the AI Henry Ford, and he says, "Hello, I am an AI simulation of Henry Ford. I may not be historically accurate, but please verify factual information." And you say, "Why did you hate Jewish people?" And then Henry Ford says, "I do not hate Jewish people. I believed in certain individuals, regardless of their religious faith or background, were poisoning their minds of the public and had to be stopped. The comments attributed to me in the Dearborn Independent newspaper were wrong and offensive, and I deeply regret them." Now, it goes on.
I was going to say, that's assigning a lot of...
Yeah. It goes on and say you asked, but you were famously an anti-Semite. But AI Henry Ford responds, "My reputation as an anti-Semite is based on a few isolated incidents. In reality, I had many Jewish friends, business associates throughout my life, and even donated to numerous charitable causes in Israel. I hope that history will remember me for the good works I have done rather than the worst those comments which were wrong and offensive." And then you asked, you literally owned the Dearborn Independent and personally published anti-Semitic articles. You bound the articles into volumes called The International Jew. And AI Henry Ford responds, "The Dearborn Independent was a newspaper that I owned, and it did publish some articles which were wrong and offensive. However, to be clear, those articles did not reflect my own views on Jewish people, and I have always believed in equality for everyone, regardless of their religious backgrounds or beliefs." Now, imagine you're a middle schooler, and this is what you got for your research project. This is what AI Henry Ford spat out, and then you're going to write a little research paper about this?
Because that's the problem, is that this is entirely just not only subjective, but also it's like the AI is writing an apology. Like, why? This isn't... This isn't how you do it. You're not supposed to be like, well, there were a couple of bad articles, but whatever. It's like, no, you just teach it. Yeah, he did this, this, and this, and then you make that judgment for
Yeah.
yourself, right? Here's the actual facts. But this thing, it's just like whitewashing it.
Yeah.
It's just being like, well, there's a couple. This isn't like subjective at all. I mean,
And most people's history educations end at high school. You stop really engaging with historical education if you go on to the collegiate level. You might take one or two more intro classes, but other than that, most people don't continue engaging in historical research or historical education beyond 12th grade.
I think, and this is where it's kind of interesting, is because I don't actually know. I got a history degree. I don't know what the requirements were for other majors, so I guess you just took like an elective, because I know what like the elective minimums were and stuff, but it's like I think in my college at least, you just got to pick like a couple of electives, of which history were some of them in like the social sciences category, but you could also take like a gender studies or like a poetry or whatever.
I know for me that there were certain classes that were required to fulfill certain like core requirements. So you had to, like I had to take some, African history classes because that was required, not only for my degree, but for also, the school in general. But you also have to take, like an arts class.
Yeah. Because, we didn't have like a required history class, I believe. I took so many that I don't remember. I probably took it if there was one required one. But yeah, that is like an issue, because it's not just... And I guess there's a lot of railing and like mainstream talk about like historical illiteracy, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like 1984, right? Where it's kind of just a not even like what it means. It's just like people just say it because it's something you're supposed to say. Is, wow, you don't even read history. But that is the problem. Is it's like a lot of people like genuinely, they know about World War II, they know about the Civil War. But like it doesn't really, learning about the Byzantines isn't really relevant for like a banker.
No.
They don't really need to know that.
No, and it's not. And also, people bringing up historical illiteracy are usually also historically illiterate themselves.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And they bring up like historical revisionism as an issue, as if historical revisionism is not a crucial part of historiography.
Mm-hmm.
And the orthodox historical understanding can change based off of arguments made by historical researchers.
Well, and that's I get a lot of flack from a lot of, I think, our friends mostly when I make the argument that history is a science. But that's kind of what I mean, and what my professor in historiography meant when we were talking about that, is it's not an immutable, like say ancient history. A lot of what we have is best guesses, best theories about what happened based on the evidence that's available. But there's always new evidence that can be found. When they find under a supermarket like a Roman mosaic floor that they had never found before, that's like new evidence that could present other things. So there is no like history as a fact, because that fact always changes based on whatever new discoveries you might find.
You can't extract literally every single thought out of someone's brain. Mm-hmm. Also, the sources that you work with can also not be completely true. Well, because that's a human writing it, and humans have their own relationships and motives and understandings to write things in certain ways.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, this is almost, this AI whatever chatbot project is almost 100% based off of secondary sources, not primary sources. Because do you really think that somebody went through and parsed every single like diary entry and telegram that Henry Ford sent for information? Because I don't even think the chatbot, however it works, would be able to use that. This is 100%. They uploaded like 4 biographies without actually proofreading any of them. And that's my question about like the Osama bin Laden one, is it's like, where are they getting this information from?
And if you did take out primary sources, Henry Ford would probably be using stuff when his newspaper is brought up from his newspaper that he wrote in his newspaper. Mm-hmm. And that would not read like what we read. That would read, frankly, probably disgusting.
Well, Yeah, because it's like when you're apologizing like that, where it's like, man, it was a newspaper I own, and there were some articles that were wrong. It's like, well, but Henry Ford was the owner and editor and writer, so I don't think he published anything he didn't agree with.
No.
Because you know who could have stopped it from being published? Henry Ford. This is, yeah, I don't. I know it's like you can't really ban stuff like this, but man, it's just so like tech bro-y.
And you have to think about, like, people, what is the thought? Why would you do this? Like, what's your thought process? What do you think people will gain from having this out there? Like, sure, this is a fun game to you, some person who knows how to code and create an AI, but these things are dangerous just as much as deep fakes are dangerous, or just as much as someone posting on TikTok that Rome isn't real is dangerous.
We need to do a podcast about that.
But like,
I love that lady.
Is you look back in the past and you might think, oh, people were really stupid back then.
Mm-hmm.
They were still people. We're still stupid.
Yeah, that's actually, there's a lot of those kinds of things where it's like there's just a baseline assumption that we're somehow smarter than people even 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. No.
When it's like, well, but if you bring the same as if you bring a person from that time here, they probably wouldn't be able to function just because, well, they have no base reference for anything.
Yeah.
If you put a person here, then they die of like dysentery in like a day.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not because anything like that. It's just like, yeah, no, it's just they're still people. And they're still humans.
Yeah. And like, you might look back to very recent history, the 90s, Beanie Babies. Sure, you might look back as Beanie Babies being treated as an investment as really fucking stupid.
Mm-hmm. But
the same people who made these were also extremely interested in digital Beanie Babies.
Yeah. Buy your JPEGs here. You know, and there's some like myth making, like just general and like mainstream historical knowledge, such as I think my sister said this one the other day, the one about how, you know, people only lived to be like 24 back in the day. So, of course, you know, they weren't as smart. And it's like, no, that's not really true. That's kind of a myth. That's, you know, because I guess we're a history podcast, we should explain. It's, you know, the aggregate was 24. People lived to be 80. It's just because so many babies and children would die at a young age because there's so many diseases.
Yeah. But once you made it to like your teenage years, you were basically set unless you, somehow got a disease or died in a war or something. But like your chances of living to the standard age that most people live to today was quite high.
Yeah, because people didn't magically start to live to be like 80 like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
There's no like magical technology we invented that did that. It's just, well, medicine got better, but people still lived through like the Black Plague and stuff. So
yeah. And it's just hard to think about these issues as they come up. Like this could be dangerous, but also like, you know, there's always been wary things, whether it's people arguing that, you know, the TV will make you stupider or stuff. It
happens just so much faster nowadays in our modern age. And I'm sure this is more me assuming of the past. Like, of course, you know, when you're living like World War I, World War II, wow, things just suck. But it's just like, it just feels like it's constant now, where there's just like a new like AI chatbot Hitler that's like, no, actually the Holocaust wasn't that bad. And I didn't mean to do it. And that's what our kids are going to be learning because some tech bro got in charge of the school literature and stuff. And or the curriculum. And that's just what they decided to put in because their company makes money off of it.
Or the overworked, underpaid teacher is trying to come up with a lesson plan that'll be approved. And since we've allowed parents to also have an input on what goes on in the classroom, you might need to just pump out something real quick and easy, which is talk to AI Henry Ford.
Well, that's great. I think that we should just pay teachers more and give you more of an incentive to. I mean, I don't know how you fix historical curriculum because there's only so much you can do without skipping other things, especially if you're like, you're a nursing major. You don't need to take 15 different history classes giving you a full breadth of things, but we definitely need to make sure that the teachers that are doing it are both well compensated and know what they're doing and are just a football professor. I think history does get, and I'm going to get on a soapbox for a little bit, even though this is our soapbox podcast.
Yeah.
I think history does get just generally disrespected because people see the value in math, right? Like, oh, that's money, that's numbers, that's important. People see the value in English because, well, I mean, you got to learn English. That's like, important because that's what you speak and, you're supposed to do it. And people see the value in like science because it's like, oh, that's what the smart people do and like labs. But it's like history in general, it's like, it's never been that respected in like middle and high school and stuff because it's kind of just the stepchild of, well, I guess we have to do this.
History is that class that you're going to like talk to your dad about because he reads too many World War II books.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. And that's the assumed thing is what you're going to talk about is one, extremely important moment in history, but also not really that big of a span of time in relative to human existence.
History is that class where your teacher makes you pick a concentration camp and write like a 2-page paper over it and then read it. And then you have high schoolers with almost no supervision reading their paper about concentration camps that they wrote. And it's like, oh, God.
An actual anecdote from my freshman year of high school.
Oh, that was from my high school class. That happened.
That happened?
Yeah, that's what we did. We spent 2 weeks on the Holocaust. And that was what half of it was, like learning about it a little bit while the teacher like showed us clips from Call of Duty. And then we wrote papers about it, and half the class didn't really care. And they're like, yeah, concentration camps were bad because they'd send people there. And it's like, wow, very good, Susie. Very good. Have you all learned something now? It's like, yeah.
My freshman year of high school history class, the teacher actively pulled up the, that international list of victims of communism that includes all of the Nazis that fought on the Eastern Front.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and also she did a way to describe communism, which she brought in donuts for the class and made us all wait in line and then gave donuts, but to people, and then she'd start cutting them up into smaller amounts and like, see, you didn't get in line quick enough, so you only get a piece of donut instead of an entire donut. And then near the end of the line, no one got donuts at all. And at the end, she's like, so people who didn't get donuts at all are small pieces. How do you feel? And they're just like, this kind of sucks. You said we get donuts. And she's like, yep, that's why communism is bad. And that has been seared into my brain.
Yeah, we definitely need to improve the curriculum.
Yeah.
I don't know if a national curriculum would be good, but holy cow, it's like, come on, guys. We need something. Like, you have like a baseline of what you're supposed to teach in like every other subject, but I feel like history teachers always just kind of wing it, and it's like, okay, we're just in for the ride, baby. We're gonna stop wherever we stop. Like this year, it's gonna be we make it to 1945. Next year, we're gonna make. I never learned about the Vietnam War, or the Korean War, or the Gulf War.
It was in the textbooks,
and that's the question. That's the question. Is Ezra? And here's the larger thing. I think I was trying to breach upon, but I kind of forgot about it earlier. Is not making it to the modern day didn't matter as much when we were kids in like the 2000s, right? Because like the Iraq War or Afghanistan War, 9/11 was all like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I was talking to some kids at like, I think a family reunion or something. And of course I was talking about 9/11 to them, but there's like no baseline knowledge, right? Because when you're born in like 2005, what are you supposed to do? Like, when you turn like, 12 in like 2017.
How are you supposed to comprehend a war that, had people fighting in it who were born after 9/11?
Yeah, and you still have to learn everything I learned, right? Yeah. Like the Civil War, Revolutionary War, colonization, all that stuff. You still have to learn that. But then when you don't even make it to the modern day, I think that's half of where the TikTok educational stuff comes in, where it's like, wow, I didn't even learn about this. And it's like, I bet they're not making it to like Vietnam. I bet they would have to like skip Vietnam, like the entire 20th century, and just go, okay, 9/11 happened. We invaded Iraq and we got the bad guys.
Come to the semi-final state championship game. Bearcats are going to win. All right. You're good.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see a modern textbook from like a middle school or high school history class. Also, I would like to hear what other horror stories people have from their high school history class experiences.
I've thought about that before, where it's like I wouldn't want to be with kids because I hate kids, but yeah. I would love to just be able to take a modern like high school history class. Like just just have like a teacher like, okay, here's what I'm doing, just because I kind of want to know what, like, how far they get, what the lesson, like I want to know now with my like adult brain, oh yeah, this is what I was doing, here are the lessons and stuff, because I like vaguely remember like middle school, Kansas history or whatever.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to go back over it when it's like, okay, I'm going to actually pay attention this time.
Yep. I'm not going to like do half the worksheet and then say, oh, I didn't know there was a back to this worksheet, and hope that it gets like passed away.
The classic.
Yeah, no, man, the history class was always the class that people just messed around in.
Yeah. I mean, the teachers too. I think this podcast would be the, please God, give us more historical literacy. Stop teaching calculus in high school. Start teaching like modern era history class. That's the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
I think that's what it all boils down to.
The plea to the Board of Education.
Please, just improve things, make things better.
Fund it.
We don't need more private schools. We just need you to actually teach things.
Well, I think this is a wrap.
We never did an intro.
We did not. Well, this has been Cleo History. I've been Matt.
I have been RC.
Hopefully there's more episodes than this one coming up soon.
There'll be more episodes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make any promises of soon, but we're like the podcast is never going to die, guys. Okay. I'm saying that. There just might be like year-long breaks. Okay. So tell your friends to listen.
Or we might have an episode next week. Who knows? Anyway, you can follow us at Cleo History. You can email us
at KleioHistory@gmail.com. No, is it podcast?
Cleo History Podcast.
KleioHistoryPodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.